cloud. Recording is in
Okay.
progress. Now I'm going back to Wennie and making her the host.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, hold on.
I don't think everyone realized that this is also going to be a lesson in technology.
Yes. So, okay, you're back the host. Wennie is now the host, and this is
Great.
recording.
Perfect.
And
And it's still
I'm
sharing
muting myself.
screen. Okay, no, great. This is great. So, so hello everyone. I'm very honored to be here with you and sharing some of my processes and how I work with pastel. I teach at several different places. I teach at the Pastel Society of America, where I've been a signature member since 2017. And I also teach I've been teaching pastel at the 92nd Street Y since 2005. And I was one of the first faculty to establish their weekend Saturday program, which is very robust now, even during COVID. So I'm really happy. And a lot of these examples are from those two places. I've also taught at Wave Hill, and I was also one of the artists, you know, in a very short little demo with Royal Talons on Pastel Live, the first Pastel Live this summer. And I'm actually going to be also doing a beginning workshop with Watercolor Live, which is the same organization, the Plein Air publishers, Plein Air magazine publishers. Streamline Video is going to be producing that in January. So, so I'm happy to share with you some of my processes. I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the ways I think about pastel. And maybe not your typical pastel artist, I'm not sure. I came into pastels a long time ago, really in high school, because I love drawing, has always been like the most important thing for me. And I love color. And so it was, I was introduced to this medium in high school. And then I bought my own first set of pastels, which happened to be Rembrandt pastels. In college, I had a material stipend and I bought it with that. And I've been using pastels ever since. And I started teaching probably about 20 years out of college. 15 years I started teaching in this medium. So so here are some examples of things that I do, and I'll be, you know, and I'll be demonstrating a couple of quick ways to sort of start. I like to work very quickly, and I really like to finish a pastel in one go. It's painful for me to work on it for a long time. I'm very impatient, and I like to just put it down and move on. So this is one of my favorite exercises, where I actually choose a palette based on a painter that I admire. This is a little detail on the left here of Sorolla, Sorolla's work, Joaquin Sorolla, who is a Spanish, he's called sometimes the Spanish sergeant. So he's a Spanish kind of impressionist, I guess. And he did a lot of very pastoral scenes. These are some paintings from his garden. And so in this exercise, you can see I did two. So there's two pastels, very quick. These are just like quick. I think they're on UR, just quick, maybe paper. I think they're actually on Strathmore paper because I can see the grain. So, so this one you can see is this from the same tulip bouquet, both of them, but the colors, the palette is different. And the palette, so here is my reference, what I'm looking. I usually love to prefer to work from life. So this was in my studio, and the same here. But in the top one, I pulled the colors from the major colors that showed up here. Turquoise, there was olive, some olive, and lavender and pink. And in the bottom one, I looked at the sort of hotter colors, reds and oranges. And so you can see that I start out with a different, you know, ground and positive and negative space summary. And then with that limited palette, I very quickly added in some of these strokes. so this is like one exercise that I really like, because I end up with two different versions, different palettes from the same still life. And so it's a nice challenge. And I'll just go through some of these so you can see like the different ways that I'm teaching. Teaching a lot of beginner people just beginning in pastel, who are maybe new to color. This is an exercise that I made up years ago. This is my box of Rembrandt pastels, and that I rearranged into colors. And this photograph is a photograph of the Gowanus Canal. I live in Brooklyn, and this was taken on the F train, probably sometime in like winter, early in the morning. Not a very snowy winter, obviously. And so in this exercise, the entire exercise is done with line and done with vertical lines, with the exception of the very beginning, where I do a very preliminary sketch. And then I take my first initial like 5 or 6 pastels and make just vertical strokes through that sketch. And then I start to go through my box in order. So I'm using my colors in order that they appear in the box. I'm not choosing them, but I am choosing where to put them, but only with vertical lines, long or short strokes, depending on what I see. So in other words, in this case, you can see that I'm going across like this. And I'm going down like this. And this is how I'm using the colors. So in other words, I'm not choosing the colors at all. This exercise was in response to, I was working a lot with limited palette with my students. And one of my students was annoyed because she bought this box of 60 Rembrandt pastels, and she was annoyed that we could only use green and only use red, but not use the blue and orange and whatnot. And so she asked me, when are we going to get to use all of our pastels? So I thought about it, and I thought, I can think of an exercise where I'll let you use all of the pastels, but guess what? You cannot choose which one to use in what order, just the way they appear in the box. And you have to put them down in this particular way. But my students, surprisingly, they love this assignment. It's very meditative. So you can see this is the resulting pastel after many layers of vertical strokes. It has the very sort of almost, I wouldn't say it's almost like a impressionist or colorist or pointillist exercise, but not as extreme as pointillism. I've had to do that in school, and I didn't really fancy that level of extreme color approximation. This is obviously another favorite artist. I love looking at different artists and trying to reinterpret their work into the pastel medium, and trying to think of how can I take the lesson that I see in their painting and translate it into pastel, and in a step-by-step way. And so this is a painting by Wayne Thiebaud, one of my favorite artists. I love his work. Also makes me hungry all the time. So I bought this piece of cake from a local bake shop. I put it on a plate. And what I did was I had my students choose a bright color to put in the background as their ground. And then what I did was I drew the oval. So Wayne Thiebaud talks a lot about how he thinks of his paintings as being abstract, and how he's really looking at circles and squares and triangles. And I thought, oh my gosh, of course, here is the circle, here is the rectangle or square, and here is the triangle. So no wonder he was gravitated towards desserts and cakes, because if you cut up a cake or a pie, you get those geometric shapes. And so what I did was I did not have all these pieces of cake. I just used the same piece of cake. Every time I turned the plate a little bit and redrew the cake on another ellipse that represented the plate. And so that way I got 4 cakes or 5 cakes. And then I just made up the color. The color was a little bit based on what I saw here. Now, one of the things that Thiebaud does, and this is something that I really like to do because I love color, and I love how other artists look at color. And where they draw their inspiration. And if you look at Wayne Thiebaud's color, you could see how he uses blue in the shadows. And you can see how he doesn't use gray, he uses blue and or a blue, something like a blue, a cool color. He really plays with color temperature. You know, here, for example, he has, I know it's a little low res, but he's using blue and orange together, but the blue is a little stronger, but he's using them together. And then on the edges, he's going to like rim some other colors and whatnot with those strong colors to make them pop. And that's what I love about his work, because he's just having a good time. And that's what I like to do when I make work. I like to study and be focused, but I'd like to have a good time. I like the colors to be, sometimes I laugh at what they do, and that gives me a lot of pleasure. And I like my students to enjoy them as well. So here you can see that I just made up the colors, and I made up the frosting, and I decided what was going to be what. And then you can see that I also purposely made the shadows bluer and different colors to experiment and have fun with it. And so this is the resulting, pastel, based on the idea of what I learned in his pastel. And you could see, like, I'm playing around with the shadows. I'm seeing what I can get away with, right? So it's a lot of fun. And then sometimes this is again, there's so many endless exercises, but just to show you, this is a way that I sort of document my exercises. In this one, I actually sketch out, and then I add a dark ground, and then I work the lighter colors, medium, and then lighter colors on top. This was a funny, this painting, this pastel was based, I love the work of Janet Fish. She does these large paintings, old paintings of like daily things just from the pantry and whatnot, or glass and things like that. I learned about her work actually through watercolor. She does a lot of paintings of glass, and I love painting glass in watercolor. But anyway, I thought, this is funny. This is a Chiquita banana. This is my Chiquita banana that I did actually, in front of me in my studio. I set it up, and I thought this looked like a mountain. So I thought I would turn it into a mountain. And so that's sort of what I did. You can see that I didn't, do this background. I kind of made up my own background, and through a progression of values sort of built this up. So it's a little bit funny. Again, I love to have fun with this medium. And you can see I have other things that I do, just different ways that I process and think about the how to begin and how to grow a painting. This is one I'm going to demonstrate, urban painting. This is on UArt, so I'm going to demonstrate something similar, but I am going to do a ground to sort of show you how I might work that. I'm going to do start with an urban painting on UArt, and then go into something that's a little bit more landscape like on another colored paper. It's going to be similar to this one, actually, because I'm going to start with the opposite ground and then sort of build up from there. So these are just some other ones. All right. And these are very recent ones from Cape Cod that I did. So I'll stop the share. And I just wanted to show you like a little bit of the range. And I do also like a lot of still life. And again, my work is really just, I'm a teacher before I feel like I'm a teacher before I'm an artist. I purposely don't have a set style, because for me, it's about teaching a lot of different techniques and about discovery. I don't survive by selling my work. I have explored all of those routes before, and I did not find it to be that fulfilling for me. And the most fulfilling thing for me has been teaching and working with individuals and seeing how they learn and trying to help them, and then designing new ways to share these processes with more and more people that are interested in the medium. All right. Okay, so I am going to switch to my other camera now. And by the way, just you can ask me questions. I see something in the chat, but I'm not sure. Oh, okay, I think that's not for me. All right. So I have this image. I hope you guys can see this. And I'll just pivot it a little bit so you'll see a little bit more of it. I wanted you to see the image here, and maybe I'll do this so you can see it a little bit bigger. I think I have to do that. Okay. So here's an image that I thought I would do this sort of challenging image. Let me see if I can get it a little bit more of the image. Otherwise, I'll flip it the other way. This I could see it a little bit better from here like that. But I'm just working from home. I have a little push-out box here. And I'm just going to turn the camera like that and like this. So you can see a little bit more, I think, of the photo. So this is a picture taken from that I took at the Brooklyn Bridge. I really just work with photographs that I take myself. And you can see that part of the challenge of working with an image like this, and you see this a lot in city scenes, it's the sun is very bright and the shadows look very dark. And so one of the things that I find with my students a lot of times is they'll take an image like this and they'll want to do it in like very black and white, because even though colors are very brick and whatnot, it is very strong, like light and shadow. And so a lot of times I'm trying to convince them, and I'm sure you all being colorists, maybe, maybe this is easy for you, but it's hard, it's difficult for them. I try to convince them to change the shadows and make them blue, so cooler. So really like replacing the value with temperature shifts. And that's something I like to sort of play with. So I'm going to do like just a very simple, this is one of my favorite ways to work. So I'm just going to do a simple wash here. And I'm going to do almost like a negative color wash. So everything is going to be a little bit in reverse. So in general, I see when I look at this scene, I see the colors as blues and maybe oranges, right? So it has a complementary color scheme right there. And so I'm going to actually start out the buildings with some of the blue color because they're actually more sort of orange. So I'll choose a blue color to start out with. And I'm just going to choose again, like I can choose certainly like a deeper color and work on top of that. I'm just going to choose a blue color here, something like this. It's kind of a deeper blue. And it will have a look of almost like a black. So, and what I'm looking at is just this general sense of the angles. And I'm also kind of looking at this general shape. Something I might do is sometimes I do straighten out the buildings a little bit. So here is this is in Dumbo. So this is the Manhattan Bridge that you're seeing here. And it's sort of the ramparts, I guess, of that bridge. This is the bridge that you kind of see a little bit of. And I don't do that much. I sort of start out just with a little bit here to get the sort of sense and nature, just the basic sort of layout of it, because I do then go over it with some wash, and I love the sense of that. Now in this area, just to make it contrast, I'm going to add a peach color. So it's not the color of the sky at all. It's quite different. All right. So I'll do that. And I usually document my process. So every now and then you'll see I'll just kind of like take a little snapshot of my process. Okay, so now I'm just going to go to the alcohol wash. And I love this part. I find that it's, you know, this isn't the way I learned how to do pastel. This was something I came to much later. Actually, the way that I came to it, just to be perfectly honest, was I had a student. I have a student. She's still with me. She still takes classes with me. And she took classes with me for many years. And then she decided she was going to try a class somewhere else with another teacher. And she didn't tell me. It was something she wanted to try. And she took that class, and she said she came back from it and she was so depressed. And she said that she was the worst student. And she felt that the teacher was really angry with her the whole time because she was working on paper and everybody else was working on sanded paper like this you are. And she didn't even know about it. And I felt awful because, you know, up to that point, I only worked on paper. I didn't work on sanded paper. It wasn't that I didn't know about it, but, you know, frankly, I couldn't afford it. I was single mom. I'm a single mom. I had gone through divorce that was very costly for me in many ways. And I couldn't afford to spend I work with nonprofits. I don't get paid a lot. And I couldn't really afford to spend money on supplies, you know, because I had to put my son through summer camp and there was a lot of expenses that I had, and that was just not something that was affordable. But I felt awful because I was her teacher, you know, and I felt like she'd gone unprepared. And so I decided I was gonna, you know, figure out a way to teach more broadly, like different materials with my students. And right around that time, Royal Talons, which is a pigment company that makes the Rembrandt pastels, they sort of, we discovered each other. So I had never really thought, frankly, about the pastel companies or companies that make pastels. But I started teaching at the Pastel Society of America and was introduced to many wonderful people. And one of the things that they did pre-COVID was a materials fair, which maybe some of you have been to. I know Adrian has been to that, and maybe many of you have. And that's where I met the makers of Rembrandt pastels. And it was just such a lovely introduction. And now they pay for a lot of my materials. And it's been incredibly helpful and to my students and to myself to have that support. So you could see I love this. I love the sort of painterly drips that happen in this process of the wash. It's really quite wonderful. And you probably have all done this before, alcohol wash with UART, right? And so I love starting out a pastel in this way. And again, the point of it is I'm starting it out. I have the sort of values set up. I have the basic shapes set up. And the idea is a lot of times, like, and I'll do this also plein air, like as a process. And then of course, the hardest thing, just like with watercolor, is like, you know, giving this a little bit of time to dry. And while I'm giving it time to dry, I'll focus on my my box, my palette. So I'll sort of think about what what do I want to pull in this? So this is like my basic set. I'm just working from a small desk pochade box in my home, in my Brooklyn apartment. And I have, I have roughly these colors sort of divvied up. And so I've got my greens, my blues and greens here, my yellows and browns here, and my warm colors here, and my sort of purples on this side. And this was, I had recently been doing an exercise, so I had some of these. And so a lot of times I'll just pull out, I love this exercise where I'll just pull out all of my blues, since I'm thinking about a blue and orange sort of complementary color scheme. I'll just kind of pull them all out so that I have them all available to use. And a lot of times I'll also just reward myself with a dessert color. Maybe it'll be purple or something. So I'm just going to have all of those out over here. This, I think, is this a blue? Yeah, that's kind of a blue gray. So I'll have these out, and then on the other end, right, I'll have my my oranges sort of pulled out. So I'm just gonna push these aside, and I don't know, this is again how I manipulate my colors. I'm not going to have a lot. I have actually a lot of lights that I probably won't need. But these peaches and beiges are actually really helpful. I do have a paper towel here that I work with because, as you know, these get a little bit dirty and my fingers get a little bit dirty. And so I will use that. I don't typically use gloves. I'm just really careful about washing my hands. I put lotion on my hands before I use them, but of course everyone has different sensitivity to it. So I will separate out some of these colors. The colors that I actually really like to use for urban scapes are rusts. I like reds a lot. And so I'll use that. And actually pink is a super helpful color, even though it's not in my scheme. Sometimes it replaces some of the colors that I need. So I'll pull these colors out. There's a little bit tweaking in certain directions here. Okay, so those are most of the colors here. I have this rust color. And then I have, of course, like a reserve of other colors that I might be using. I'm not sure what color that is. I think it's more of a mauve, but there's that color. So I'm going to push all of these colors aside that I probably won't be needing or aren't part of the scheme. And so you'll see that I'm mostly using these colors here and these colors here to start with, although I might augment with some darks as well. All right. So I'm going to touch this. This is just about dry. And I'll start to put in some strokes. And so as I'm starting out, I do try to like start a little bit on the lighter side, and just putting in some of these colors here. It's maybe still like slightly damp. I love the peach kind of showing through.
Excuse me, Wendy, could you just move your camera back up?
Yeah. Yep. Sorry. I was like,
Thank you.
On that. Yep. There we go. So I just picked that blue and I'm just starting by adding this here. And I'm just going to adjust the light a little bit because I think it might be a little strong. Okay. I think that's a little bit better. This I can, I think I can lower the brightness so that you can see it a little better. Let's try that. It's always, I think it's always like, it's a challenge digitally to get like, for you to be able to see that and that, but I think that works. Is that better? I think that's a little better. Okay, so I'm just gonna start to work with this. And the challenge, of course, like, it's a little bit darker for me now. And so I'm gonna have to kind of work at it a little bit more. This is a warm blue, and I love that warm blue, but also super helpful to add like a cooler blue to that. So I'll kind of look for hints of a cooler blue to add to that color as well. This is a sort of a deeper deeper blue here. And what's so beautiful about, what I love about pastel is just the reversal of it, that it can go from something sort of deeper to something kind of lighter. And so I'm just going to stroke in. Again, this is just like the beginning kind of step. This I actually like too. This is the sort of a deeper blue without getting into the nitpicky little bits of the bridge. I can sort of hint at the pattern of it just by doing something kind of loose like that. And I always think it's a thing. Sometimes my students will go maybe a little too light and a little too dark starting out. Now it's easy to just think about, you know, this is this blue here, and I'm just going to leave it there. I'm blocking in that area. But I always take that blue and I look somewhere else, like at these windows, and even if I'm not sure where those windows are, I'm just going to take that blue for a walk around the picture so that I get a sense of, you know, where else it may I kind of might catch it. Even here in the white building, which is in light, it's lighter. And so I'll look at that value of this building and sort of put it there. And with cityscapes, what's really great, these cars, right? I'm not even really looking at them very carefully, but just getting the sense of there's that blue of the sky sort of carries down sort of below this point in some way. So that the color will kind of shift and come into that part a little bit. All right. And then I try to move on. Like I try not to finish anything before I go on. And it's always, of course, like really hard. I'm like anybody else, you know, want to get something sort of done before I move on. This is that color of the building, right? Or something similar to that. And I love again, just sort of trying to guesstimate or get close to that color and get the sensation of those structures. And looking at this shadow, this beautiful shadow here. Can you guys see okay? All right. Hopefully it's still, let me know if you
Yes,
can't
I think
see
we
or
can
something.
see it fine.
Okay. And I see a little, you know, also like little dashes. So here, I'm just gonna, instead of doing all of those windows in that distance, I'm just gonna kind of hint at that building with some light pressure. And maybe the sort of upper level of it like that. And then I want to drag some of this color here, even though I don't really necessarily see it there. There's this wonderful kind of shadow coming down here. And again, I don't want this color to get isolated, so I'll move it around. And again, this is just like, I'll move it into the shadow, but with light pressure. Here's where the kind of light, I see that kind of light coming in. It's probably through the openings of the bridge. And so I'll sort of pull it up in that area. You can see it starting to like kind of come up, and I love this sort of very loose quality of working. You can see not everything, it's not perfect. This is maybe, you know, over a little bit more, so I'll make that sort of correction. This might be come down a little bit more, so I'll, you know, make that correction. So there's little things that, you know, maybe can be fixed about it. This is that dark. I always try to keep this dark around. This is a Rembrandt dark. They have the Rembrandt pastels. I love the Rembrandt pastels because they were my first set that I bought myself. And I've used them so much for teaching. I find that because they're not as buttery, they are very buttery to me on certain papers, but because I can work them in a lot of different ways, they're so helpful for teaching and learning because they don't just dissolve. I find the hardest pastel for beginners are Sennelier pastels, at least in my experience as a teacher, because they're so soft that they're frustrating to use. Students, a lot of times, are come from drawing and they have these beautiful sets of Sennelier pastels and they can't quite control their pressure yet. And it's really frustrating for them to try to draw with that pastel, even though it is an incredibly wonderful, obviously well-loved brand that I treasure my Sennelier pastels too. But and then there have been so many sort of like, at least for me, like newer pastels, the Ludwigs. I don't know how new they are. For me, they were not on my radar for years due to cost and then also availability in my area. And now they're everywhere, and of course they're amazing. I mean, and I loved all the different shapes that they come in. So you could see like very quickly, you can get a sense of the colors. And then I don't want to just limit it, I can't just limit it to these blues and oranges, but I want to sort of disperse the colors. So sometimes, again, what I'll do is I'll take the sort of rusty color, and instead of a flat color over here in this building, I'll add some of that orange, just light pressure, so that I have another color sort of poking through. And same over here. There may be somebody that needs to mute. I'm not sure if I'm hearing something in the background, but. I'm going to add a little bit of this darker color here, now that I have this sort of angle of this a little better. And then I'll take I'll work my way up to the light colors. I love taking the beige color eventually and bringing it into this scene again. Summarizing the kind of the planes of that building. And the shadows become, because of the shadows are on a white building, the sort of blue underneath that was my sky blue sort of becomes that lighter color. This same color that I used here, which is kind of like a peach, becomes a color that I use over here to sort of build up. And so that the blue becomes a little bit denser, more compacted, using it on its side, that kind of bringing it down like a brush. I think of like a flat brush stroke, right? And then, and then even on this UArt, like colors, depending on your pressure, when you pull them on top of other things, they can kind of blend. I like sometimes to take like a turquoisey color and add it in the background here to push something, make it pop, and also add something in the back that kind of pushes it further. And that's sort of fun. Hello?
Who's asking? Who's talking?
I don't know. I think somebody was saying hello, so I don't know if they.
Somebody was calling Marianne, I think, and the dog.
Do I need to pass the host back, or is it okay?
You don't have to pass. If anybody wants to talk, they can speak up. Just unmute yourself for a minute and ask a question, or you can add a comment to the chat, and we'll see how many comments there are, and I can read them to Wennie.
So I'm just choosing like different types of blues and allowing them to merge together and creating a sort of a denser surface. And I do like with cityscapes, again, I really like working in this sort of with the flat of the pastel on this UR with the flat of the pastel and working it this way. And letting the gravity kind of bring that powder down. So sometimes the sky can get really flat, like it's getting a little flat right now. And so what I'll do is I'll choose another color and just take my chances with, like, this is this is actually Richardson. So I really love Richardson pastels also. And I'll just very gently drag that orange, this peach color. You could see it's like picking up some of the blue, and I can rub it on my paper towel, but very just gently adding it with very light pressure to the blue. I just feel like it makes the colors talk to each other more. And it makes the blue a little bit less like, you know, this flat color. I love that sensation. And so I really kind of play around with that a lot. You know, my students always think I'm a little crazy doing that complementary colors, but I can't help it. Same with like this turquoise in the back. I love taking something very similar value and like this orange and just dropping some lines in to the back. I feel like between the turquoise and the orange, they're very you know, they're not blending so much as it's just it's a nondescript kind of a color in there, which I think is fun. And then of course I keep my building colors ready to go. Likewise, I'll take the turquoise and drop in the turquoise, very light pressure, into the orange of the building. And I know this is like, you know, strange, right? But now for some reason, these two areas talk to each other because the blue of the sky has a little bit of orange. And then the sort of brick color of the building has some blue in it as well. And so I love that sort of conversation that starts to happen between the colors because there's a, you know, they're sort of family now. It also, I think just that this kind of thing implies the sort of very, what is it, textured brick surface of these urban buildings. And I think that's, you know, something that is exciting to do. Maybe here where there's this little door here, I'm not going to put any blue there. So that area will be a little flatter. And again, I'm just dragging this like very lightly. Now what I'm going to do is, again, this turquoise, I'm just going to add a little bit to this sort of darker area, which is nondescript. And I'm going to also add some other, I'm going to, again, remember I said I wanted to make this bluer. I have this more sort of almost like an ultramarine blue. I'm going to drag this into this area here. So and again, I remember I'm going to do two quick demos for you. So I'm going to switch over soon to another format so you can see an approach on a different kind of surface and what happens there. And but this is something like if I'm working plein air, you know, this is the way I'm kind of thinking. You can see that I'm not like putting in all the windows and it's not very labored. I'll sort of see, like, I'll hint at the windows here, you know, I'll hint at the angle of the windows here. But it just keeps it sort of very fresh. It also satisfies my absolute impatience in terms of anything really. I wanted to finish it now and move on now. always, right? So it satisfies that also little bit. And again, there's that sense of mystery. You could see that I could go in, you know, you could do all the, you know, if I get the angle of the car, I can get some of that, but it's more like the activity of, you know, what's happening, the shadows here that happens with some of those cool colors rather than this sort of exacting, you know, realism that I also like, right? That I also like, but maybe not outside, you know, when I'm working plein air. So so I have some of those colors, and now I'm going to go actually on the darker side, even a little bit deeper with some of these colors, and add again a little bit of, like, I call it like corners, just things that will get a little bit more of a definitive shape, even if I'm not pressing very hard, because there's this kind of a soft edge. I maybe just want something that has a little bit more urban straight, which is something that I you know, struggle with, because I tend to do more organic sort of forms. So I like the challenge of doing these urban forms and getting them to have the geometry that can feel a little uncomfortable. Again, here, break up any sort of, especially in the distance, I want to break up anything that's geometric with other colors that hint at activity without necessarily describing every bit. And then finally, and again, I'm going to move on. I'm not going to get every little bit here, but just going to add a little bit more. This is a deeper blue color. Here's like the, you know, this is always like a thing in New York, right? There's always some kind of building or scaffolding going on. Everything's always unfinished. So the hint of some kind of activity happening there, maybe bringing back some of the shadow side of cars and activity here with some little marks, you know, but again, still loose. I can think about getting some of those, just a little bit of specificity in some of the windows will be enough without going overboard. Same over here, a little bit of that, just a few little marks will be enough to sort of carry that sense of geometry there. And I love that. I'm always thinking, like, how much can I get away with when I work this way? I'm gonna take the lighter blue here and just again start to add really just like vertical strokes into this area here. This has like a little, and then again, bringing some of that color back. Okay, and so this is like a way that I kind of start out. I love this sort of very loose quality. You see that sensation of light in the back. You know, I love this sort of play of the light as you're pulling different parts into relief. So it just it retains that kind of loose quality. All right.
Wennie,
Yeah.
there is a question from Adrian to Wennie.
Sure.
Do you sand the side of the Rembrandt half sticks with some sanded paper, etc.? I know they have a coating on them.
That's a really good question. So I don't sand them, but the coating is rubs off. So when if you're using sanded paper, the sanded paper takes those right off. Like it's very quick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I don't tend to bother too much with that. I do if you're using certain kinds of papers though, I do find like the Rembrandts, you know, some of the colors, the coating will sort of resist. The other thing you could do is just take a little bit of water and like rub them off.
Oh.
But I find that, you know, working on the side on the sanded paper, they come off. Yeah,
was
they come
gonna say,
off just with that pressure.
I had a student who was using them on Canson Mitien's paper.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so,
not
yeah.
a good combo.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
not a good, no, I mean, not, it's
no,
not, it's certain, so certain combos I feel like don't work
Yeah.
well, and that's a combo that
Oh,
doesn't.
I,
Yeah,
I started with the full sticks, Rembrandt full sticks on Canson Mitien's, and that was okay.
okay, okay, right. So it just depends. I mean, then I think it's also very individual, like depending on the pressure, the amount of pressure that you add, and the way that you work with the pastel, I think it definitely is like all like very individual. I'm not a big fan of the mitens personally speaking. So I don't tend to use them, but I didn't like that combination, and so it's like kudos to you that you made it work actually, because I found that to be very challenging working with the Rembrandt pastels on the mitens. Yeah, and so you can see I added a little bit of the darker warm tone back into this sort of blue area, and it just has a very kind of like loose feel. This is the kind of suggestive feel I really like with pastels. All right, I'm so sorry. I don't know what my students are like texting each other in a group chat, and they have me in it, so it keeps popping up in the back. I tell them not to text me when, you know, during the day, but it's a Sunday, so I think they don't know that I'm doing this. So I apologize for that. Anyway, any questions at all about?
When it's
Yeah.
Michal, I just wanted to make a comment how I enjoy seeing the way you layer the color. It's very unique. I don't think I've seen anybody doing it that sensibly, so delicate. I mean, on the top of the building on the right where it has that sunlight, the little bit of blue that comes and breaks the brick and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's really very, I don't know, special.
Yeah, it kind of sparkles. And you know, the reason why it happens is it's this thing, you know, I think all of you know this, it's called simultaneous contrast. So when you have opposite colors that are the same value and you put them next to each other, they make each other they kind of make each other more brilliant,
Vibrant,
like
pop.
yeah, vibrant, and they vibrate. And if they're at the same value and they're opposite, or one's warm, one's cool, and they're at the same value, it's like your eye cannot decide which is coming forward, which is coming back. And so it vibrates and it's exciting. It actually excites our eyes. And so that's a little kind of deliberate bringing some of the sky color, you know, into the building color, but maybe a little darker because the building's darker, and then bringing some of the hue of the building, the warmth of the building as a lighter color into the sky, so that both have that vibration happening.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
What
Thank
type
you.
of camera are you using to show us your pastel in progress?
The webcam, you mean this camera here, like this one, or you
Yes,
mean this? Oh, it's a Logitech webcam. I want to thank Royal Talent, although they paid for it. So because I do demos for them and I didn't have the right equipment, so they
Mhm.
said we'll get you a decent webcam, and they did that. Yeah, it's great.
It is great.
Yeah, yeah. So they've been just this really supportive company. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that very quick little demo. I thought I would do another one if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
There's a
We
little
have time.
time. Okay. And because I just wanted to show you, like, you know, this is on the UR, and this is a lot of times like how I work out of doors. I work very small. This is just 9 by 12, and very limited palette. And this is kind of like how I think, and I prefer to keep it very loose because I enjoy that loose quality. Sometimes I come home and I will like do a little bit more after working out of doors. Okay. So just a simple way you can get that kind of response. So the other paper that I thought I would work with, this is my new love. I love this paper. This is like it's a Rembrandt toned paper. And let me show you, do I have the cover of it? Okay. I'll just show you what this is. And this is like a shock to me because I work with charcoal paper, like toned charcoal paper for a long time, and I really like that a lot. But this is the paper. It's called Tone Sanguine Red. And it's, you can see it's, you know, you can work lightly with different wet media on it. You can get it. This is the largest size I think it comes in, like about 11 by 17, roughly. 12 by 16. So and it's made by Rembrandt. And I'm shocked how much I like this paper because it's like really inexpensive. And what's neat about it, and I mean, here's the thing too, that's very interesting. So just like the idea of experimenting with different surfaces with your pastel is very exciting. So, you know, you can use the UR all the time. And certainly that's like a very happy thing, or whatever surface you're working on, art spectrum and other things. But it's sort of great to just experiment also and be kind of free to explore what other media, other surfaces may work. And this is a very surprising medium surface that works for me. So, you know, so I thought I would do another, a different type of image. Oops, sorry. Actually, I want to go into this. And I have some more organic images here. These are, I think these are the ones I was looking at. Okay, so something like this. This is actually, I think it's, for some reason, it's okay. It's a little low res. I'm not sure why it didn't download all the way, but I think it's all right. And I think this is actually in, like before the Delaware. So this is actually in New Jersey. I picked this on purpose because it's an image. I think it is in near the Delaware Water Gap. Sorry, it's a little fuzzy because the for some reason it didn't download well into it. But I'm gonna work it to this edge. And again, what's really wonderful about this, because it's a slightly larger paper, I will still sometimes create like a little bit of a drawn border. I don't need to tape it all the way down. And I just want to show you like this, I'll take a section of it like this. You can tape it off, but I'm just going to do a section of the image here, like maybe something like that. All right. I hope you can see enough of it. I don't know if maybe I'll move it back a little bit and see if I can capture a little bit more of the image of the paper so I can get a larger section for you. I think that's about all I can get. Okay. I'll maybe add a little bit more to the right side here just to get the composition, or maybe make it a little smaller. Okay. So I love this paper. It's very forgiving. And before, you know, instead of doing a ground the way that I did with the colors in the UR, I can work a ground also. This is a Cretacolor pastel pencil lead. It comes in, I'll show you what it is. I really like drawing with this. It comes in this container. Sorry, it's very soiled because of the dust, but I'll show you what it looks like. The container looks like this. It's this little thin little plastic thing. And this is what it is. And I love this. I love drawing with this. It works so well with pastel. So it's made by Cretacolor, and it's a sepia dark lead. And it comes in these little skinny sticks that are darker than this, but I have, you know, dust in my fingers, so they look like that. And I love drawing with these. They're great because you can kind of do on the side. They're harder than the pastels, but they're just so great for doing this kind of like sketchy drawing, thinking, like I think of it as a thinking drawing, where I'm trying to think of like what I want to do here and keep it kind of sort of loose. So I have this, you know, little pathway here. I have over here, try to push it over a little bit. I have this, these trees here that are along the side of the path. I'm going to push the path over this way. And then over here, I have this little waterway here and, you know, the back of that area there. And then some bigger trees and branches on that side. And so I'll do some kind of loose, and you could see it's a really different kind of a super straggly loose sketch. And I love this kind of like thinking where I'm just wandering in this landscape and enjoying it like I'm taking a walk. I sense this sort of opening here. I sense this sort of opening here. And you know, and so it's very sort of loose and organic. And you can like I just want to show you, like you can take the alcohol and then you can actually, if you want to, like brush on alcohol or water even, because this paper will kind of take some of it. And sometimes that's kind of a nice thing to just have these sort of drips, and it dries. And, you know, for this paper and this process, it's not as critical, I think, as the cityscape on the UR, because I feel like the UR really like that paper for the sort of underpainting that I can do and how sort of dense that can be. So, but this is good just as a sketch. You can see it's like super loose, kind of silly, you know. And then I'm going to go in, I'm going to do my colors. And one of the processes I like with, especially with this paper, is in really sort of dispersing the colors. So I'm going to start out by just, again, adding some loose color. You could see that the paper already has like a color, right? So that kind of is great. And I'll block in this blue here like that. And just kind of very loose, I'll bring this down into the water, you know, something like that, right? And then maybe even just a little bit of that blue into this path. This is a little bit slanting here, so. And then even some of that blue into the tree trunks here to sort of start out. So and then I'll go back and forth. And so in this case, again, I have a dark, almost like it's like a sort of a purple color, and I do have that sort of dark blue. In this case, if I look at this color scheme, instead of using just the blue and orange color, complementary color scheme, I might use something that's a little bit wider. Again, and it's like, this would be like an exercise, right? So here, what's really great is instead of using the side of my pastel, I can really kind of like draw, and I love drawing and having like twisting this pastel around and doing this kind of thing, right? Because it's just like so fun for me and pleasurable, and to have these kinds of marks. But I'm starting the landscape, you know, kind of on the dark side. You could see that nothing is like super light yet, and really kind of loose, right? Because I want to like really feel a sense of freedom in this landscape. And so I want to sort of build up, and then I'll put in other colors like this lavender that I put in. I'll put it into the sky too. Sometimes also, if I get stuck with color, like I'm doing something, I don't like it, I don't like the color, who knows why, I don't know why, I'll look at Soroya, or I'll look at another painter that I like or that I'm thinking about, and I'll see kind of like, what is it that can I do to make this you know, a more palatable color choices for myself, you know. So I'll sort of think about that, and you could see I'm really like not trying to just to capture the feeling of the space without getting too kind of hung up in the bits. And again, still continuing to build up. This is like someplace maybe later in the day, so there's like sort of a golden aspect to this. I love that. I love this paper for that. It always feels like kind of nostalgic. Here I'm gonna push that down, and then again, if I'm using like say like a purple, more colors, right? So I might be using, for example, some purples, some yellows, some blues, some oranges. I'm kind of keeping with that. And here's like kind of maybe a focal point area for me. And so I'm gonna just kind of establish that a little bit in the beginning, sort of decide that's maybe someplace my eye is gonna go to. And you know, work that. And again, same kind of thing. I want to break it up with some color. So I don't want it to be just a flat color. I want there to be some different activity of feeling of activity back there in terms of the color. So I'll pop different things there to kind of create that sense of color, and push this right up against the back there so I can see what the color is doing right up against each other. And then I'll start to pop other colors around. So like I'll make some of the rust color, I'll pull down. I'll also go in with some, I think of olive as like a dark, almost like a dark yellow. I'll use some of the texture from the side of the pastel to create sort of the little bits of things sort of hanging on to the, turn that a little bit, hanging on to the branches. And then I'll start to go in and poke even more holes. So, and I'll do this with so where the clouds are white, a lot of times I'll just go in with a warm color and start to bring that color into, put something behind that. I don't know if there's something to keep that from. Let's see, let's do that. Okay. I think it's just from my pressure. I'm pressing on this paper. So it's sort of creating that. So I'm looking at like where the paper is, and I'm just making these little marks for the clouds. And then I'm kind of joining them and going over them with some strokes. And I think of this as like painting, like where I'm pushing one color into another and shifting the way that I'm applying the direction of my pastel, like I would like a brush. So it's like I kind of dot the color in, and this may be also a little bit from my my experience like teaching watercolor. I do this with watercolor sometimes also, just drop in the color, brush the color in strong. Then I bring the pastel, I bring the, another color in with a wet brush and kind of join things together. And so I'm always like looking, and this is why I'm so interested in various media, because I love that translation, I think, of translating that medium. I love the challenge of translating one medium into another and seeing, well, can I take that concept from this, traditional way of approaching this medium, and how can I evoke that, in another through pastel in a way that's sort of new, or that I haven't, I'm sure everything I've done is somewhere else also, someone else has done it, but for me it's new, right? And then possibly for my students. And so that's always the kind of thing that I'm looking for, is how can we explore this in a different way, that for someone it may be the way that really kind of resonates for them. And so you could see, like, what's really wonderful about working with this sort of darker paper is like the landscape kind of makes itself, and you just can kind of very quickly. And I'm interested in these sort of quick starts. Part of it is also, I demo for my students, right? So I can't like show them a 2-hour demo that's going to take up all of class time. That would be very selfish of me to do that. So I have to do these quicker demos so that they have time to figure things out on their own. In the shade area, what's really interesting is like sometimes the color of the clouds will turn like lavender. So in the lighter areas, as the sky is sort of moving from one area to another, I'll get that sense of movement. And by the way, like most of these colors that I'm using are Rembrandt pastels. It's just that I've really used them. And so you can see they're like tiny, and I still use them. And I know them, I know each color well. So, and I've really increased the number of brands of pastels that I've used in the last maybe 3 years. But before that, I really used just this one brand pretty much all of the time and got to know it really well. And I feel like that is like a really great way that worked for me, which is to get to know one key brand that is really always works for me, and then slowly sort of build some material knowledge of other brands that have it. Now remember, I never just do sky, just blue, and then nowhere else is blue, right? So because this color has to speak to other things in the picture. So even though this is like a stone path, and we think of stone as like not blue, right? I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna make it so. And I just love this kind of very sort of loose quality. I'm going to also go in now, the color that I added here, I'm just going to, with the side, I don't even know what this is. It's some lighter color. I'm just going to go in and sort of grab it. And this is what I love about these nature scenes. It's like the light changes so much. There's so much texture there. You can never get everything anyway. I don't even try. I just revel in the attempt to, approximate what I see, and just get that sense of the feeling of this. And then again, I'll, just like I did up here, I'll bring in another color. In the back, it might be more of a lavender. And see, I kind of remove some of the trees, but I can put them back if I need to, right? With some strokes, but this area is kind of a little further back, so I'll put some of this in between to push that area back, that kind of lavender. I also like to use that little touch of turquoise. Always creates some sense of light for me that I like that color. I don't know if it's like from my teen years. I really liked Maxfield Parrish. I don't know if you guys know, it's kind of a little, romantic, I think, dreamy kind of work that I liked when I was younger. So you can see like the whole thing sort of starting to develop. Oops, sorry. Okay, here we go. And sometimes I do combine things. Some of that color, I'm gonna, even the blue, this cooler blue I have in the sky here, I'm gonna bring down into the path area. And I know we just have 10 minutes left. Want to make sure you know that I'm aware of that. You can cut me off at any time. This is, again, both of them are very quick studies, but I think, loose and something happened there. I'm not.
I just said no rush, but I don't think that's what was repeated. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I said no rush when you said you have 10 minutes, but somehow it amplified that, I think.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened. I know technology is funny. We hear all sorts of like funny sounds in class, like that are inexplicable, and we laugh. Sometimes again, I'm just sort of emphasizing some of the areas. You could see I actually love that sensation of the bread coming through. And I'll take like even like the stronger orange color, which is very similar to the red, and just kind of mark, kind of create that mark, kind of coming back into these forms, some rust shapes, and some of that, the blue. There's that group chat again. I don't know what that's about, but adding some of the initial marks. I think of this as almost like Mondrian, like if you see some of the, we don't think of Mondrian as having being very connect with nature. We think of like Broadway Boogie Woogie and all of those very geometric, but his very like beginning studies were very much about nature and trees and the way that the branches divide. And he was very interested in that sense of, geometry. And I love that. I love the way that he broke up the branches. I think those initial sort of nature pieces are so incredibly poetic. And I'm not sure I really like this side on the right here, but and I'm just going to bring in maybe like a few. This might be a mistake, but as well. This is like some yellows. Again, because I wanted to use sort of some broader colors in this one, slightly, you know, and so I'm just gonna sometimes like just little bits of that sense of the yellow cutting in, hinting at the sort of trees. Again, it has a very much more undefined feeling. I love this sort of just taking the pastel and making that horizon or dissolving it. This is such a great medium, isn't it? I mean, we all love it. That's why we're here. But it's just, it's great to be among people that appreciate it. It's great that we're together. And so just putting these marks in and little things like little dots and little blue dots that sort of sparkle, like inexplicable bits. This is that deep kind of blue that was quite beautiful in the other one. You can kind of very quickly get a sense of that that color. This is like almost like a, just to get a little bit more of that. Maybe I overdid it there. Okay. Sometimes just putting the edge of the pastel there and just getting a little bit more definition, or sometimes I continue the trees in the back, but not with the dark color, with something bluer, less strong. So it implies like some kind of movement. And then eventually, I think just, oops, sorry, it's just felt too much, too strong. Oop. I lost track of where, hold on, let me pull that piece up again. I think it's right here, okay. Too strong of a motion there. Hardwick, is that, does anybody know? It says that's where it's telling me this is. I finally got clear so I can see a little bit more what I'm doing here. And I can see that there's some brighter bits of color down here now. Like a little path of light. It kind of shimmers in. I like this little bit of lavender light, maybe just here also. Just like a little something there. So you can see there's a lot of that paper showing through, and I just take my time figuring out how much I want it to be there. Bring some of that lavender down into this pathway too, so that that color doesn't get isolated. Kind of likes the yellow. This sort of deeper color I can bring down into this area. Stretch that shadow. I don't know why, but I always like pictures where you kind of start in shadow and then you enter into the light. And just attracted to that sense of mystery. It's very like theatrical, I guess.
Maybe it frames it. It's like a frame. The darker. frame.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Like a frame. I like that very much. And then I can still go back with the Cretacolor, and if I wanted to add some, you know, strokes or just drag some finer detail across, I can still do that. So, you know, again, you can see I worked this up. It's very fast, so it's, you know, still in progress. But it's a quick start. So you get the sense of the whole feeling very quickly, which I think is, you know, I think it's really important. Sort of set that stage. I mean, talk about theatrics, you know, you sort of set that scene, and it kind of, the picture sort of establishes itself kind of, you know, rapidly, and then you take your time to sort of savor it, you know. That's at least kind of how what I like about this medium. It's like a dance, sometimes a little slow, and then it'll kind of just take off, and it's exciting and thrilling that way. I just love it. I know you love it. You all love it as well.
So there is a question here, Wendy.
Sure. Yes.
Is the focal point still on the right side? Now it feels like it's on the path.
Yeah, maybe it's both. Maybe it's both right now. I had it pulling it back into this area, but I did focus a little bit more here in the end. So yeah, maybe I'm looking over here a little bit more. I think what happens is they merge. So eventually I think the idea is they merge into the back somehow. But yeah, and we have more than one focal point in a painting.
And also it seems like, to me, it seems like initially I was drawn to that water shimmering on the right. But there is a path leading your eye into the painting, and that's the path.
Yeah.
So this is so that water in the further distance is your destination, and you arrive there, but you start with that path, I think.
Yeah, I like that interpretation too. You come into it from here, and you find your way back there. I mean, it could be a thing where you know, like right here, I see some kind of light, and so it could be some little bit or mark that sort of points your way back to this area here. Yeah, it's like a little storytelling, right? It's a little narrative, how to get back there.
It makes you want to get to the water.
Yes, yeah. Beats you in. But it's really fun. This is so fun because it's just like a bunch of stray marks. It's like almost nothing. Yeah. All right. I hope that was helpful, or, you know, you got something out of it. Here's the full element, just, you know, and it just really, it's about like starting quickly, you know, instead of getting stuck, and also dispersing the color in different ways. This one versus this one, again, very different scenes, but, you know, very similar colors. This has a little more, has the lavender, and this, you know, a little bit less, but all
And the
right.
marks are very different, I think. The way you did the sky here, for example.
Very different.
Different.
Yes. This really, I worked it very vertically, like, because it's a cityscape. So I'm kind of like keep my marks very vertical. In this case, I really, you can see in the beginning, it was all over the place. It was like some gestured sketch, right? Because for me, like, not that the city can't be that way too, but that particular scene, not so much with the bridge. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
you're
Marian, would you like to,
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank
Marian? Would you like to say something?
Thank you. That was terrific.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and thank you for taking the time to watch it. I know, you know, Sunday afternoons are precious, so
Mhm.
yeah, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for all the one. I love all the is this Rembrandt paper archival and pH neutral? That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. It says artist quality, but I don't know that. Made in Italy. It is, here it says, you can take your drawings many different directions with this earthy red paper. Is particularly suitable for light colors. Tone sanguine red paper is made from 15% cotton, 20% recycled paper, and has a grammage of 120 pounds. So if it's made, I'm not sure. I mean, I would say the cotton, yes, but I don't, it doesn't,
Recycled, probably not.
probably not. Yeah, so recycled paper, probably not. And you know, so yeah, probably not. For me, personally speaking, like, I don't survive on selling my work, and definitely I don't survive on selling my work to museums. So I'm not
One day.
I know. So I'm not too, I'm like, yeah, you know, I love this paper. It's fun. It's great for working. You could see it's great for working landscape. Surprisingly, it's this dark red. You wouldn't think so. But somehow, like, I feel like the colors of the landscape, like the blue of the sky, like just pops, you know, on the surface. And it comes in other colors too, but this one is my favorite. The red is my favorite. You know, it's very unexpected, and it just, you work on it and it just has this velvety feeling, and it's so shocking because it's this inexpensive paper. I don't even know if it's like 50 cents or 25 cents a sheet.
Oh.
And that, to me, as a single mom, like doing a lot of demos, you know, I'm like, I like that price tag, because my your paper is like $2 or $3 for a little small piece, you know.
And especially since you do so many demos and short ones, you go
Yes.
through a lot.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Oh, the demo was wonderful. Just both of them were
Thank you so
terrific.
much.
Oh,
It
great.
was-
I'm glad you like them. You can look up more of my, so I do have an Instagram. If you look up my name and Instagram, it's just my first name, last name, art. And I do post, like, I post, it's really like a teaching, like what I'm doing, teaching, and sometimes my own stuff, but it's a lot of my demos. So I'll post like pictures of my steps, and, you know, some of them are time lapse, some of them are still shots, and I'll talk about what I used. You know, that's really more my thing. I've had a few sad people try to buy my things from Instagram, and I just don't even know where they are. Like sometimes, and I'm like, you know, wait until I find it and I'll let you know. So I'm not big into sales because I'm so busy teaching and I'm just having a lot of fun, trying out different things with my students. And now that Rembrandt has me as an ambassador, they send me a lot of stuff to try out. They want to know, like, do you like this stuff or do you not like it? Why? We want your honest feedback. And that's fun. That's really a lot of fun.
Mhm.
It doesn't help my situation in the studio though, as you can see.
Can all relate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But thank you. I'm trying to see if there are other questions here. Wondering, yeah, beautiful trees. I'm quoting on them, right? Oh, great. Thank you. I love you. I know that. Yeah, 10 pastels. I know we're all so hooked. Yeah, is the focal point still on the right side now? It feels like it's on the
Yes,
back. Right?
yes.
Yes, that was good. So beautiful. Yeah, I have. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
I have a question for
Yeah,
you.
sure. Yeah.
I love that paper. I use that paper, that Rembrandt print paper
Oh,
a
good.
lot.
Oh, great.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's especially good, as you said, for landscapes,
Yeah.
because like if you're dealing with like greens and blues, it just brings them alive.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a
yeah.
short, it's like a magic paper for landscapes.
It
Um,
is. All of a sudden, there's depth. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
with just like a few little marks.
And you
Um,
don't have to do the ground. You don't have to,
Yeah.
put ground on and go through. I mean, I love that process too, but it's sort of when you're outside, especially, it's nice just to get started. Like,
Right.
you know,
So
Takes time.
I've been using that for plein air painting. Like
Yeah.
this last week, I went to upstate New York and, did a lot of foliage kind of stuff, and it really worked. Do you, my sense of, I've seen you do a lot of demonstrations and I really like your work, and I like how your process, and I can relate to it. My sense is that you have a lot of intentionality about the placement of color and the complementary correspondence, and not leaving a color, to be an alien color in there. I
Yeah.
feel like I work that way too, and that I don't really even care about focal point when I'm starting something. I feel like I discover in the process
Yeah.
of trying to capture what it is that I'm seeing and working with the color, that determines what ends up being the focal point for me.
Yes, sometimes it changes. You're right.
Yeah.
I do feel like no matter how intentional my start is, I always learn something that surprises me in the demos. And that's why I do them. And I don't ever really know what it's going to be. I mean, I don't know. And then at a certain point, I'm like, ooh, that's fun. I like that. It's new. And that's why I just like doing them and sharing them with my students. And it's straight. I mean, I do my own work too, but I mean, I do a lot more demos than I do my own work where I'm not demoing for a class. So for me, like, I really feel like, well, I benefit from the class, having to show people it makes me do more, maybe with more intention, but then also with more of a sense of discovery that I share with the students. And then hopefully they also take that in their own work, so it's very communal. To me, art making is very communal experience in that way that is more satisfying. I mean, like any teacher, I crave the time that I get to work on my stuff, but then I do that and somehow, I miss the class experience and I feel like, well, actually it was really fulfilling with my students, and it's kind of lonely by myself all the time, so it's always this like back and forth tension, so
The audience, the performance.
yes, yeah. But I think that's okay. I've become comfortable with that, and I've accepted that as, just sort of a given, aspect of being an artist and being the kind of artist that I am, where I like learning in that group environment, and having a role in it. students have certainly with questions pushed me beyond what I would have, explored on my own. So I feel like it's a very symbiotic relationship. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's great. I love that you like this paper. You know what I'm talking about.
In the next material fair, maybe we'll get to test it.
Yes, I hope so. I will definitely push Royal Talents to come with paper samples, and particularly this paper. This color in this paper is very satisfying.
Wendy, I had a question. When you said your student took another class and then found out that, everybody else was using sanded paper. So how did you just experiment at that point with the sand? Did you just buy some sanded paper and kind of navigate that and figure it out? Or did somebody teach you underpaintings, or did you just figure that out on your own? I was curious.
No, I did. So I did a combination. So first of all, I felt awful, and I felt like I didn't prepare her well for that experience. I didn't know she was going to do that, but I also, I felt like I needed to do better. And so I did, I bit the bullet, and I researched different sanded papers, and I read a lot of blogs. I did a lot of online research before I bought, because I didn't know what kind of paper to get. And it seemed like there was, in general, like a general consensus of UART being, UART 400 being this sort of favorite among pastelists. So I went there, and then I looked up YouTube demos, and I watched like a lot of YouTube demos of like, how do different artists use them? Some of the artists that I watched were like Richard McKinley, and who everybody knows, right? And so he had some demos on YouTube, and I watched and to see how he used it. And then I also Nancy King. Yes, she also I think, I don't know if it was somewhere in that process, I had already gotten the paper, but then at some point she did a demo that was live, and it might have been at the materials fair, and she was using that paper, and she was doing the underpainting and everything. And I knew about it already, but it was really great to like watch her do it and see how she approached it. So I definitely learned from doing, but also doing research and watching demos, because it wasn't something that I'd done. I had done a lot of underpaintings for oil painting. So I've done a lot of my training in art schools, oil painting and acrylic painting. And I do underpaintings with watercolor, even like tonal paintings, and then you layer color on top, really not as a successful way of painting, but just to understand the transparency of the medium. So I understood that. So it was helpful. It was very fast. Like for me, it was, it was easy to pick it up. I had worked with paper for so long that when I started working with UR, it was like a very sensuous surface, where you get like a lot. I was like, wow, good bang for your buck, in terms of.
Wendy, you may want in the future, if you have a chance, to try Pastel Premier. But
Okay.
that would work better with your softer pastels, I think.
Really?
I
Okay.
think the Rembrandt just by itself will not bring the qualities of that paper.
Yeah.
But that would accommodate your softer pastel as well in a very good way.
That's so Premier. That's great.
Yeah, in some level, it does remind me the Kitty Wallis that we used to have years ago. Really good. It might be more expensive, I don't know, but if you have a chance, when you have a chance, but
yeah.
I use that paper too, and I actually I don't do underpaintings except when I do them with my students, but for the most part, I work directly, and I like the Italian clay because it's so I always use the Kitty Wallace paper, the Belgian Nist, but now that that's not available, that's mostly what I use.
Does it come with colors? Like, does it come in colors?
It comes in some colors. Yeah.
One of my students, so my students are so generous. They'll sometimes, learn or want to try another surface, and they'll get an extra for me to try. It's so sweet. So that's how I started trying Art Spectrum recently, because somebody got me a sheet of purple Art Spectrum, and they said, try this, and there's a red Art Spectrum, Yeah, it's really, so it's fun. I mean, I do think that's a wonderful, because they want to see like, how do you use this? How would you use this? And then they try it,
And if you like the velvety quality that you were talking about, the
Yeah.
Claire Fontaine has that velvety. You don't see the tooth, but it takes a lot of pastel in, and it's very
see.
velvety as well. It
Yeah.
has that purple that you just aubergine that you just mentioned. So
Oh my gosh, right. Yes. Our favorite eggplant, like
yeah,
the most essential color ever.
yeah. So
Look, yeah, this was so lovely. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Thank you so much for all the wonderful comments from all of you. I really appreciate it. So it's such a pleasure to demo among other pastel lovers
and
of
like
this
my
medium.
So
I have a question. I
Sure.
think Winnie, I don't know if Marianne or McCall had asked you, but we now have a YouTube channel, and we were wondering if we could put this recording on there and just make it available to our members, because we don't want to, cause any grief for you. If you haven't made up your mind about it, would you give it some thought and let us know, please?
Oh yeah, no, of course, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that.
I
Yeah.
didn't think you would, because you're
Yeah.
such a teacher.
And
But,
she also said yes at the beginning, Carol.
Yeah. No, it's my
Now I'm
pleasure.
wondering if
Yeah.
it worked because it doesn't seem like it's recording now, but I know it said it was.
Oh, I
recording.
think it is. I think
It
it's
is.
It is?
recording.
Okay, good.
recording.
Yeah, it's
Because,
recording.
because now I'm not the host. If you want to turn it back to me, I don't see.
Oh
that
yeah, let me do
it's
that.
not.
Let me give the host.
Maybe I
back
should
to
wait
you.
before you switch to me. Or maybe you should. I don't know. Yeah, switch to me and then I'll stop recording, I guess.
Okay. Okay. I just changed it back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can do a stop.
Okay.
Yes. Are you sure you want something?